So some exciting news from the What Life, and that is I am building myself a new bike, and I thought I'd take you guys along for the journey. I want to use this as a bit of an opportunity to give you guys a guide of how to go from dreaming about a new bike to actually building one yourself. And this specific video is going to be about all the things that you need to consider when it comes to buying all the different parts and the components that you're going to need. First things first, you're going to want to find yourself a nice frame. I want to do a bit more crit racing or a bit more racing and get into crit racing, so I thought I'd get myself a nice aero bike. In comes Winspace T1550, fully integrated aero frame, and I'm very much looking forward to riding it. I'm hoping it's going to be extremely fast. Obviously, I'm probably the thing that will stop it from being too fast. So if you are looking to build a T1550, this is probably the video for you because I'm going to take you through everything that you need to do. But otherwise, the first thing you need to consider is what type of bike you want to build, and then find a frame that kind of fits that style. Whether it's something that's more a little bit toury or a little bit climby, or whether you just want a nice fast aero bike. I got myself a size large, and that's the next thing to consider, is going on the website of the frame manufacturer and basically looking up the details as to kind of the specs of the frame, and there should be a size guide online, and I'd really recommend just dropping them an email and just kind of giving them some information about you, and then they can definitely recommend what size frame is best. But you can also just use the size guide that is online, which is basically what I did. Once you've decided on your frame, you then basically need to look into getting yourself a group set, which is basically the majority of the components that you're going to put onto the bike. So things that you need to consider are obviously the chain rings, and then the front rear derailleurs, and then brake discs and levers. It's basically the main components that you're going to need. I've gone for a Sram Force group set, and I've gone with absolutely everything. So I basically just contacted a retailer, and they were very kind and gave me an absolutely great deal on picking up the new Sram Force. So I've gone for 4835 on the front, and this has a power meter. I'm very excited about that. I also have the Sram Force front derailleur and rear derailleur, and a Sram cassette that goes on the back. So now that I have my frame, and then I've decided on my group set, the next thing to consider, and this is very important, is the bottom bracket. And as everyone probably knows, bottom brackets are the bane of everyone's existence. So they are a little bit complicated, but there are two main things to consider. First and foremost, that is what type of bottom bracket or what type of diameter is on the actual bike. And if you go online, you should be able to see on the specifications of the frame that you have, what type of bottom bracket you have. This is a BB86. A BB86 is basically a press fit of a certain diameter. So I then need to consider what group set I'm going to be putting on this bike, which is a SRAM group set, and it is referred to as a SRAM dub, which is basically the diameter of the cranks. So I need a bottom bracket that is going to fit into the frame and then also fit the cranks to go through. And this is what I have here, which is a SRAM BB86 dub bottom bracket. If you had a Shimano group set, and you could obviously put whatever group set you want on your bike, then you'd probably need, or you definitely would need, a slightly different diameter for the bottom bracket, but it would still need to fit the frame's bottom bracket. The easiest thing you can do is actually just contact someone that sells bottom brackets, explain to them what frame you've bought and what group set you have, and they should be able to match you up with the right bottom bracket. If you are looking to build this specific bike, I have actually gone and found myself what's called a Token Ninja thread together bottom bracket. So I do have this SRAM one that I'm not going to use. I have ordered a second one online that actually threads together, so they meet in the middle of the bottom bracket and they thread together, which should give it a little bit more stability, and hopefully, not that I've experienced it because I haven't built the bike yet, it should stop any squeaking, and I've heard good things about it, so I'm hoping that comes soon and I get to put this bike together. Right, next thing to consider, or the easiest thing to consider that I would recommend you do, which is your seat post. The Winspace T1550 comes with its own proprietary seat post because it is a certain shape. So they actually provide you with a seat post. You do not need to buy one. I actually just whacked my own seat on this already. But chances are, if you are buying a frame online, you probably will need to buy yourself a seat post. Just check the diameter of the hole, and then the easiest thing to do is to buy a seat post that's produced by the same manufacturer, and that's taken care of. Now, you've decided on your frame and your group set, and you've got yourself a bottom bracket. Thing that you do have to pay attention to is your wheels, because you can't just chuck any old wheels onto a bike. Now that you've decided on the type of group set, you're going to have to make sure that your hub body fits what you've just bought. It's confusing, I get it, but we're going through it and it's part of the process and I'm enjoying it. So this is a brand new set of Hyper SE67s, and this is disc brake, and I cannot wait to ride them. I think they're very cool. They're a nice wheel. But at the moment we have basically a Shimano hub body on it, and I need to swap that out for a Sram hub body so I can put my Sram cassette on the wheels. What I've done is I've contacted Winspace, I've ordered myself a separate hub body, and I can just pull this off and swap it out, and then that way I can put my Sram cassette on and it will run no problem. And then obviously disc brakes can go on the other side. That is definitely something to consider, is that you can't just kind of be like, I'm gonna whack any old cassette onto a set of wheels. You definitely have to pay attention to the hub body that you have. And then the easiest thing to do is contact the manufacturer, see if they make a different hub body for that particular wheel and for the cassette that you want to put on it. Obviously, if I was running a Shimano group set, this particular hub body would be perfect. It's a Shimano 11 or 12 speed. I just need to swap it over to a SRAM one because I'm going to be running a 12 speed SRAM rear cassette. Right, last thing to consider, and we'll just knock this one out the park, which is your cockpit. This is a Winspace Zero Aero one-piece bar and stem, which I think looks really cool, and I cannot wait to build this up. And it's integrated, so I can put my hydraulic cables through the bars and then run them down the stem and internally out to the disc brakes front and rear. Obviously that might not be an option for you, or you might just want to run a separate bar and stem and then put it together. Just make sure that you check the diameter of the front tube or the front fork. But once you've decided on that, you basically have all the components that you need to put a bike together. Things like bar tape, pedals, tires and tubes, and whether you're going to go tubeless are things that you can actually decide later. Once you've gone through these series of components, you basically have the makings to build yourself a bike. So let me just run this through very quickly. First thing to consider is frame, and then go into frame sizing. Once you've done that, you're probably going to want to look at the group set that you want to put on it. Easiest thing to do is to find one manufacturer and basically just buy all the components from them. So you probably don't want to, or you definitely don't really want to mix up SRAM and Shimano components. So if you get yourself a SRAM group set, then you probably want to make sure that you have SRAM derailleurs and then a SRAM cassette as well, because then it's going to work as it is designed. And obviously you can do the same with Shimano. You get yourself a nice Shimano Ultegra set of cranks and maybe 105 levers and things like that, and kind of mix it up within the brand, but I don't necessarily recommend mixing the brands together. Once you've done your frame and your group set, you want to make sure you get the correct bottom bracket. This is going to save you a lot of time. So first and foremost, check what bottom bracket it is on the frame, and this is a BB86. Check what group set you're going to put on, match the two up and get the correct bottom bracket. Lastly is just make sure that you have the correct hub body on your wheels, so that when it comes to putting the cassette on, it can just slide on, you can bolt it up and then off you go. And this is basically all the main components that you're going to need to build yourself a bike. I can't wait to get going with this, guys, and I really hope that you guys stick around and watch the actual build when it all comes together, and I'm looking forward to taking you through it because I think it's going to kind of look very cool at the end of it. I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, why not just buy a bike? And you wouldn't be wrong. It might just save you a little bit of stress. First and foremost, I will say that bikes are quite technical nowadays, so I do actually think it's really handy to understand how to put a bike together and how it has gone together so that you can fix anything yourself, and I actually quite enjoy that. Also, I can make this bike exactly how I want it, and this is the nice thing. The reality is that once I've got all these components together, I probably could just go down to a bike shop and ask them how much it would cost for them to build it all up for me. I just want to make sure that I'm giving them all the right stuff so that I don't get a phone call and they tell me that they can't do something because the hub body on the wheel isn't correct. So there we go, guys. This is stage one of how to build a bike, which is getting all the correct stuff together and the things that you have to consider. I will see you guys on this next series when we actually pull this all together and we build ourselves a bike.